So once you have installed CoolCastPlayer, just like any other WordPress plugin, by going to Plugins, Add New, and then upload the file. This is a zip file that you have downloaded from the members area, and you install it, activate it. Now you'll see in your WordPress dashboard, you'll see this new setting here called CoolCastPlayer, and underneath you'll see two options, players and settings. Start with the settings first. Click on that. That's the screen. Now you'll see first you're greeted by the license key. This is where you would enter the license key. You would log into wickedcoolplugins.com. Please check your welcome email that you got immediately after your CoolCastPlayer purchase. So check the members area and you will find your Wicked Cool Plugins license key. Copy that and put it in here, and that is your license key, and that is what will allow you to use CoolCastPlayer. Now the next setting is podcast feed caching. This is only applicable if you are using CoolCastPlayer as a feed player. So you have to be using a feed player as in if you have a podcast, and if you're using CoolCastPlayer to power your podcast, then you will have a podcast RSS feed. This does not apply if you're just using CoolCastPlayer to play regular audio files in your members area. We'll get to that in a minute. For that, you'll be storing the files on Amazon S3. This setting is only if you're using CoolCastPlayer to play your podcast feed, and your podcast feed should be from one of the supported podcast hosts right now, that is Libsyn, Blueberry, FeedBurner, WordPress feed, Podbean, and SoundCloud. Now if you're playing individual episodes, then those files can be stored on any website anywhere, including Amazon S3, Google Drive, Dropbox, your own WordPress site, and so on. But we're talking only about feed, having an RSS feed, and CoolCastPlayer currently supports a bunch of podcast hosts, like I said, Libsyn, Podbean, SoundCloud. So always check the website for the latest information on what feeds are supported, as that could change over time. Feed caching is one of the awesome features of CoolCastPlayer. So what it really means is that when it loads your feed for the first time, let's say it's the very first time you have installed it, so that's the first time it'll load when the feed player is loaded on a web page. And that's the time it'll make a copy of that locally on your website, so that every time the feed player is loaded, it's not loading the RSS feed from your podcast host, which can slow things down considerably, especially if you have a large feed. You have had 50, 100, 500 episodes, then every time loading the entire RSS feed, even though it's only a text file, it's still, there's the time to connect to a third-party host, which is probably where your podcast feed is hosted. And even if it is locally hosted, it's still a call, and then it has to load it, and then it has to parse through it. And so all that processing time is cut down when you cache the feed. Cache means saving a local copy to avoid going to the source, whether it's a third-party host or going to the database. And that's why even plugins like WP Super Cache speed things up considerably, because they're not trying to load all the posts and pages from your database every time. Same concept here. So the whole thing is loaded once, and by default, if you have a weekly podcast, you can set it to every 7 days. Now remember, you don't have to necessarily wait for 7 days to launch another podcast episode. If you decide that you are, if you do 2 episodes a week, then you can go here and say every day, or you can leave it at every 7 days by default. Maybe the occasional week you'll have 2 episodes or 3. So during that time only, you can just come here and say delete existing cache. Whenever you know that you are publishing something out of schedule, then you can just delete the existing cache, so that it'll reload it right here. And you can go to the page and load it once. Just visit your own website, where the feed player is, and that'll again reload the cache, download the RSS feed, and save the cache, so that from that point onwards until the next time the cache is deleted, either because it's past 7 days or whatever setting you have here, or if you manually delete the cache, then that's when the cache is reset. So it's a great feature to improve the performance of the loading of your podcast RSS feed player, especially when in the beginning you may not notice much of a difference because you'll probably have 5, 10, 20 episodes. But as you publish more episodes and you go to 50 or 100 or 500 episodes, that's when you'll really start seeing the performance benefits of having this feature. So again, that's a special feature that not many other players have that CoolCastPlayer has. And again, the feed cache feature is only used when you have an RSS feed player. It does not impact individual episode players from your podcast, or if you load up individual audio URLs hosted, doesn't matter where they are hosted, but for the individual episode players, there's no caching, but this is only for the RSS feed, and you have a feed only if you have a podcast. So it'll not be useful even in a membership setting where you're playing membership audio only to members. Next, we have the social share settings. This is where you would enter your Facebook app ID. This app ID, I will make a separate video to show you how to get this app ID from developers.facebook.com. But the bottom line is this app ID is used when you have a Facebook like button below the player, and that's where this app ID is required. Then you have the Twitter handle. Put in your handle here, like @John Smith, or in my case, it's @Ravi Jagopal. This next section is the PowerPress player default settings. This is only for PowerPress users, so you can skip this if you're not using PowerPress. I will cover these settings in a different video. Let's skip right ahead to the next setting, which is S3 Media Vault settings. Now, CoolCastPlayer also integrates with Amazon S3. So again, this is covered in a different video, how to set up Amazon S3 with CoolCastPlayer. But if you're wondering why do you even need that, then that is because by default, if you just enter, I covered this in the individual player video. If you use CoolCastPlayer to play public audio, publicly available links, right? Like public links from your podcast host, or stored on Dropbox or Google Drive, or on your own WordPress site. Those are all public, unprotected links. Then CoolCastPlayer, you use the other settings. But what if you wanted to use CoolCastPlayer in a private members-only area? Now, of course, you need a membership plugin like Digital Access Pass to actually protect the page. But after somebody gets to that page, the audio URL that loads has to be protected. And that's where we recommend that you use Amazon S3 for storing private audio and private video, and even private PDF and all other types of files that should only be available to members and paid members. So DApp takes care of making sure that only authorized members can access those pages in the first place. But after they get to the page, they should still not be able to do a right click, look at the URL, pass it around, send it to somebody by email, or post it on a forum. So that's where integration with Amazon S3 is critical. So if you're using CoolCastPlayer as a audio player for members only audio on your members only pages, then that's where these settings come into the picture. But I'll cover these settings in a different video specifically meant for Amazon S3 integration. So that's it. Once you have completed all the settings in this page, that completes the settings section. Now in different videos, I'll show you how to set up the players, both the feed player and the individual episode player, which is also not just for podcasts, but for any audio URL you have.